What's up? KP Community EP7 dropping in. Had a little technical difficulty, so this is kind of a recording / reshoot, but nonetheless, Garrett's here, I'm here. Switched seats tonight? Alright, well that's fine. So, I need to be able to see the TV screen, so it's better if it works this way. So, new seating positions / recording session / in the studio with KP Community EP7 in the studio. Anyways, moving on. Tonight, we have a number of things. How to, under the hood, AMA, and the wrap, of course. Some good questions in AMA tonight. We also have a great how-to from yours truly. You're not happy about your how-to tonight?
It is what it is.
I expect a little more energy out of you.
It is what it is.
Okay. Anyways. Going off tonight, starting up, we've got a sponsor from ProPlay AI. So have you ever wanted a deeper understanding of your mechanics? For years, to fully get objective information on biomechanics, you had to visit a biomechanics lab. This process was clunky, markers, a cold lab, expensive lab equipment. It was a process that many either couldn't experience or didn't enjoy. Good news though, today you can get objective data on your mechanics right from the palm of your hand. No more awkward or expensive lab, just you and your phone. ProPlay AI presents Pitch AI. Pitch AI is a groundbreaking technology bringing the lab accurate data that you get from a lab right to the palm of your hand daily. Never has understanding how to improve your mechanics been so easy. Just capture, review, and repeat. Perfect your timing anytime, anywhere. Pitch AI. Check it out today at proplayai.com. Special shout out ProPlay. Appreciate you guys sponsoring the episode. Dr. Mike Sohn coming down in December. Excited to have him on the cast and obviously join us there. Garrett, going into tonight, Trap Bar Deadlift.
Yeah.
Explaining it in the how-to. How you feel about this one?
Good.
Excited about it?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of guys Trap Bar Deadlift, and a lot of guys like it because they can load it heavy. But
dude, it is only like 8:30. You have way more energy than this. Garrett's not bringing it in episode 7. Not bringing it. Not bringing it. He's already tired. I'm gonna outwork you.
I'm never tired.
I'm outworking you.
Nope, I'm never tired.
All right, we'll jump in tonight to the how-to Trap Bar Deadlift with yours truly, Garrett Phelps. Garrett, what's up?
What's up?
Not much. Trap Bar Deadlift.
Nope.
Going on how-to today.
Yeah.
All right, let's break it down. Why are we doing a Trap Bar Deadlift versus a regular straight bar deadlift?
Yeah, so with the Trap Bar Deadlift, it puts the weight in the middle of your body. So if you want to step into the trap bar, you can see that the weight is right in the middle of your body, while a straight bar, if you were to grab a straight bar, is going to be out in front. Because the weight's in the middle, you can load it a little bit heavier, and ultimately that's what we're trying to do with the deadlift, is use as much weight, so that's why we use the trap bar.
Okay, cool. So, you know, I've done Trap Bar Deadlift a lot. I have my own internal cues. How do you teach our athletes, like those internal cues, the things, like ways to set up? I know you may have some steps, like teaching the Trap Bar Deadlift. How do you teach them?
Yeah, so there's starting cues, then there is positioning, and then the actual movement itself. So the starting cues is you're going to be setting up in the middle, like we said, right in the middle of the body. Then you're going to be stand tall, you're going to rib cage down, pelvis tucked. Almost every exercise we're going to do is you're going to have that rib cage down, pelvis tucked. That's the starting cues. And then going into positioning, we want to basically, in the exact same position, you're going RDL. So basically an RDL, shifting the hips back, which then provides hamstrings and tension, the hamstring and glutes. Then all you want to do is bend over where you can grab the bar with your full fist. Now, we want to round the back, pulling tight on the bar. Then you're going to take a deep breath through the nose. You should feel tension in the upper scaps. Then, after that deep breath, you're going to drive your knees forward, chest comes up, corkscrewing into the ground, and then ultimately you're going to be coming up. You should be creating so much tension before you even try to come up that the bar almost should already be coming up. That's how much tension we're trying to get through the body. Then, when we're thinking about the actual movement itself, it's really the first half of the lift is going to be quad dominant because the knees are going to be out in front. But the farther we come up, my knees lose the advantage to produce force, or my quads lose the advantage, that's where the hips come in. So it's really knees, 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 and then it's hips to finish the rep, and then that's the movement cueing.
That makes sense to me. So I know that we have some athletes, and don't mind the grown man strength here for my deadlift, but I know we have some athletes that we don't prescribe trap bar deadlifts or deadlifts in general for.
Yeah.
What would be some reasons for selecting the trap bar deadlift as part of a program for an athlete, or maybe some reasons not to select the trap bar deadlift for some athletes?
So with the trap bar deadlift, it's one of our highest skill movements, so there's a lot of prerequisites that an athlete is going to need before they even get to the deadlift. So there's going to be deadlifting before for technique, and then ultimately getting to the trap bar deadlift as we're trying to put as much load on the weight bar. So for that, an athlete that's a young athlete that's never lifted before, we're probably not going to be trap bar deadlifting because they probably haven't met those prerequisites. Older guys that have had some issues or injuries along the way, that would be another reason. Or if a guy just doesn't like to deadlift in general because it's every time he does, he flares up his back, that's another reason that we won't deadlift. We can always get the same adaptation from a trap bar deadlift with different exercises. It's just going to be a little bit more exercise, and you might spend a little bit more time in the weight room to counteract not being able to put all those movements into one, like the trap bar deadlift.
Love it. I think that's it. Okay. Sweet. Boom. That's our how-to.
So, bringing the energy in that one.
Yeah.
That's freaking awesome, dude. So I think this is interesting. There's a point you bring up here, right? We're talking about who should and who should not deadlift, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's an interesting concept for guys. Like, I think a lot of young guys, especially, hop on social media. They think, trap bar deadlift is like highly used in baseball, right? Like a lot of people use trap bar deadlift. It's fun. You get to load it, like we talked about, right? We get to utilize VBT. So many components to this, but it's not for everybody. And I think that's, number one, an eval is highly important, right? The assessment process. But two, we start to realize that, guys have physical limitations. So, again, diving into this, what do you see as some of the issues, some of those main problems with some of our younger guys, like as they, maybe try to select exercises for themselves instead of leaning on, an assessment from somebody like yourself?
Yeah, so biggest thing with the younger guys is core stability, where having the ability to keep that rib cage down, pelvis tucked, so to keep the spine in a good position to allow them to actually produce force through the ground in the trap bar deadlift. A lot of younger guys just haven't learned that. It's either an awareness issue or they just haven't trained their core enough to actually be able to stabilize the body to actually allow them to lift the most.
Yeah, and I think analyzing that too, right? Like, so, it takes somebody like, I've been doing this for a long time, and you joke with me about how bad my squat is, right? Or how bad my deadlift is. I've been lifting since I was, 12.
Yeah.
And it's external awareness. Like, your body changes over time. Like, even if you were great at something, doesn't mean you're great at it now.
Yeah.
And so for young guys especially, I think it's really important to, have somebody who knows what they're talking about, knows how to evaluate appropriately, and can help you either make those selections in terms of your programming. I mean, you lift. I mean, you lift competitively, right?
Yeah.
And even you have a coach.
Yeah.
And so, and you do that, number one, to help you with your programming. I know that. Number two, evaluating your lifts and how to get better at your lifts is important to have a proper coach. So, when we talk about deadlifting, I think a lot of guys just hop in, Crunch Fitness, right? A lot of guys just hop in and start deadlifting. They trap bar deadlift. Question we have to ask is why, and is there a better process here for you? I think it only gets found with somebody who's, number one, educated, the mad scientist, and number two, knowing that it goes beyond just the marketing. We have to have a goal and end goal and a reason why we're doing it. So, anything to add on that?
Nope.
Dude, so much energy tonight. You're fired up. Love it. Excellent. All right. Well, with that being said, let's jump into our next sponsor for the night. We have the CTD conference. So as we know, it is critical to further our education as coaches. To continue to educate is important to have deep relationships with other leading coaches and leaders in the baseball industry. That's why Connecting the Dots Coaches Conference was created. The CTD goal is to ensure meaningful one-on-one conversations with industry leaders. This conference goes beyond the presentation and connects both your further knowledge with an industry-leading network. Join CTD on December 3rd through the 5th in Knoxville, Tennessee. For more information on CTD, visit ctdbconference.com, where you can learn more about the conference, see the speaker list, and buy tickets. Guess who's speaking in that conference?
Yes, it's you.
This guy. You got it. I'm excited about the speaker list. TJ Wharton putting it all together. Awesome stuff. Join us, Knoxville. Like I said, ctdbconference.com for tickets. Check it out. See you guys there in December. Boom. Next segment. Under the hood. This is a fun one. One you've heard me rant on for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Tonight for Under the Hood, we're talking about scheduling. Now this goes beyond, and Garrett, you can throw in your info on this one too, because it goes beyond just scheduling for pitching. This is going to be a strength and pitching combo for Under the Hood tonight, talking about philosophy a little bit. We talked macro and micro cycles of training phases previously in our, I think it was our last community, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So moving on tonight to, actually it was 2 communities ago, I believe. That's all right. I did my solo recording, I think, in that one. But nonetheless, moving into tonight, talking about seasonal breakdown, year-round understanding and breakdown. So let's go under the hood with not just Casey, but also Garrett. Boom, we're under the hood. So let's jump in tonight. We're going to pull this back. Let's go youth first. The big thing, if we look at each level, we have youth, high school, college, pro. We start to evaluate how much time do we have in the year. And we look at general guidelines. So the graph you see on screen tonight is actually designed as our recommended year in training and in game, or off season, in season. So in the youth case here, you see 50% is in season, and then 50% of the year is off season. So problem is many of you guys have recognized this is not what actually happens. This is not even close to what actually happens. This is actually pulled, these dates are pulled from the Little League recommended year calendar and signups and registrations, all that. So you see spring being March to May, you see fall being September, November. And typically that's it for youth. I mean, that's 12 and under. That's what's recommended. Even 13, that's what's recommended. And during that 50% of the year where time is off, we want guys, especially at the youth level, playing different sports, experimenting with different things, jumping bikes off of stuff, and all kind of other stuff, being athletes, being kids, enjoying themselves, and then also playing seasonally, spending time in season and competing. It's not to downplay and say we don't need to play. Like, we need to play. I mean, playing and getting that stimulus is really important to helping, especially with the high level of competition, right? Yep. So 50% of that year we're playing with a high level of competition. It's really important we get that in. But nonetheless, it's also really important to have that time off. So as many of you guys have already noted, there's Little League All-Stars, there's travel ball, there's all these different pieces that we look at, and that conflicts with this schedule. So I want to jump ahead here real quick and Garrett bring you in on this. So the pro calendar, right? So here's the MLB calendar. Right? We look at this and we go, whoa, wait a minute. Like, if the pros are playing, they're playing February to September, roughly, right? And they come in, they get started up with us, just like they are right now. We have late October, mid-October, all the way into into November, where they're, rocking and rolling, they're getting moving. We always kind of have a drop dead date of November 1 for our pro guys to get in, get their throwing process to start. This is unique, I think, and Garrett, I'll throw this to you for a second. I see guys using this period of time, this off period, as MLB players or professional players. I see them using it to uniquely craft not only their throwing, right, and what they do from a throwing standpoint, building up for the next season, but their lifting as well. What are some of the questions that you've gotten from the pro guys this year? Just name a few things that guys are focused on. You don't have to name names, but obviously name a few things guys are focused on in the weight room. Just some examples of things that guys are focused on during this 4 or 5 month period.
Yeah, so some of our guys are really focused on either gaining weight from the season because they've lost 20-some pounds, and that's just nutritionally, and it's just getting back to training, which is always a big thing, is having a time to actually focus on weight gain and actually training is important, because obviously during the season, they're focused on performance, not so much weight. Another thing is they ask, when do we go harder? If they're going to go hard, it's like we're going to go hard in the gym probably early on in the off season, which is counterintuitive what a lot of people do. Because
By going hard, you mean like putting on a lot of weight, and
Yeah.
like moving fast.
yeah, moving weight and actually what people usually think strength training is. That needs to be done at the beginning because, like on the throwing side, it's going to be a lot lighter, so they can handle that stuff. And there still needs to be progression into that lifting, but it needs to be done earlier than later in the off season.
Yeah, I think there's a contrast here too, right? Like it's observing where guys are at coming out of their season. It's we talk about this exit pin concept, the guys leaving season and joining us for the off season. And there's this period where we get to evaluate them. Some guys start up in PT. I mean, some guys literally start up. It's not because they're like fully hurt, as they're trying to build back, and correct some of the issues that have kind of, reared their head during the season. So this is a giant contrast. I mean, to listen to all the things we just talked about, right? Like correcting the body, gaining weight, like focusing on output. Like these things are built during a period of time which we can focus on a longer duration and creating these outputs. So let's go back to that youth calendar real quick. Let's just take away this pro calendar. Let's go back to this youth calendar real quick. And let's start to think, what if that concept, those thoughts, what if they trickled into the youth annual calendar, right? ASMI has a study out that shows that if an athlete's playing competitively more than 8 months of the season, or 8 months of the year, right, they're higher risk of injury. Okay, wait a minute. How many youth athletes are playing more than 8 months of the year? A lot of them, right? How many pro athletes are playing more than 8 months of the year? Not one, right? Well, maybe a couple if they're playing winter ball, things like that, but very few, right? The majority of them are taking that period off. They're taking 4 or 5 months off and developing. So let's start to flip this, right? I remember Jamie Moyer. Remember Jamie Moyer?
Yeah.
So Jamie Moyer was, I mean, yeah. So Jamie Moyer was the oldest pitcher of all time. He pitched for the Phillies up in 2008. Gets the Rays in the World Series. It's one I really remember. Jamie was around my high school when I was coming up. I remember Jamie asked me one day, I was rehabbing at the time, I was like 16. Jamie asked me, he goes, "Hey, how many months of the year do you take off?" And I'll never forget. I mean, I was like, I didn't have an answer, right? I was like, I'm like perfect game rank top 20. Like, I think I need to maintain my perfect game ranking. In my mind, it was get a college scholarship. It was maintain my ranking. It was throw 95. It was all of these categories. It was these things, none of which were spend time in the off season, figure out my annual schedule, like program better, etc. Right? So Jamie challenged me this. He said, how many months a year do you take off? And I was 16. And I didn't have an answer. And he said, well, the pros take 4 to 5 months off, so why don't you? They completely, in the moment, stopped me. I didn't have an answer for it, right? But neither did my coaches, neither did my family, right? Nobody really thought about it. Nobody ever said anything about it. It was just assumed that this process, the industry was giving me the best process that was right for me. And that wasn't the case. The baseball industry is broken. It doesn't work. Like, when we look at the youth program, the youth level, we've got people making money off the backs of youth athletes. We've got, guys in high school that are developing and trying to become, they're maturing physically, right? And they're trying to become their best athletic self. And you got coaches who are in it for themselves for a paycheck, and that's not right. So without digressing into that too much, but we look at this calendar, right? And the question becomes, parents, and players, like at the youth level especially, what do you have to lose taking 50% of the year off? Like, I don't remember, but maybe one little part of my 12-year-old. Like, I remember All-Stars a little bit. We had a great team. Like, I don't remember any of it. Like, you're not, the rankings don't matter at that age. You're not going to get recruited at that age. Like, what does it matter? Your kid's going to develop. You need to be developed, like, by playing great competition, but it doesn't mean that you have to do that year-round. Right? So let's throw that out for a second. Now let's move on to the high school, because this is a big one, okay? And this is what we hear a lot of. And you and I, we fight this every single year. We have this conversation. I feel like I'm just yelling at a wall. So I'm going to continue to yell at a wall on this one. So we look at this calendar, right? And let's align this. Let's look at the high school calendar here. Let's align this. 42% of the year we recommend is an off season. Now we recommend that in the fall, but that could be done in the summer too. It doesn't have to be fall, right? And we talk about, okay, if we're going to take this time off, like let's look at the pro calendar. Let's mirror the pro calendar real quick. We're trying to become professional athletes, right? Boom, October, January, 42% off, or 42% of the year is off, right? Let's go back to the high school calendar. Boom, 42% of the year is off. That seems to make sense. We play all spring, we play all summer, take time off, develop, rebuild our body, focus on the things that we just talked about.
Yep.
Gaining weight, especially at the high school level. A lot of these kids need to gain weight, right? Get bigger, stronger, faster. We need to build a throwing program, shut down, build up. Parents ask me all the time, how much time should we take off and not throw? Well, if you want to take time off, you got to have time to build back up. That's really what it comes down to. And that means that we have to plan the year. It takes 4 months to be season ready if you take a month off, right? So that's 5 months in total. Take 1 month off, get in the weight room, get big and strong. Take the next 4 months, develop yourselves, build up that fitness level, that capacity for a season from a throwing standpoint, jump into your spring season, have a great year. Here's the problem, right? Here's the problem. This is what we see every single year, and it happens time and time and time again. This is not me being selfish. This is not me pointing direction or finger or trying to get kids to come into our facility. This is strictly by the facts. Again, let's go back to the data, right? ASMI saying if guys play more than 8 months of the year, they're at a higher risk of injury in terms of playing competitively. We talk about in terms of throwing progressions, regressions. We know guys are at a much higher risk of injury if they're not built up from a chronic workload standpoint, right? So if you want to throw 4 innings, guess what? It's going to take roughly 3 to 4 months to get you built up to handle that if you're starting at 0. You guys, it's been recommended that guys take a month off and don't throw for a month or 2 weeks or whatever that is. Guess what? It takes 4 months to build up. So we need to find that period of time and build in it, right? And so here's the issue, right? Springtime, you got your high school coach, and he makes decisions on whether you play varsity baseball or not. Uh-oh. Well, his prerequisites to you playing varsity baseball that you play in the fall. Oh, great. Now I have to play fall baseball, right? So now I've got spring and fall where I have to play high school, and I have to basically appease this coach in the fall in order to play in the spring, okay? Now we go to summer, and I've got a travel ball coach who I tried out for, by the way, in December or November or October, whatever it was, January, right? I tried out for this coach, and he's now letting me play all summer. So I'm going to get a bunch of innings all summer on the travel circuit, right? I'm going to move into the fall. Guess what's in the fall? Jupiter, right? So we got to go to Jupiter and play in that event. And so these guys, they build, they basically start playing year round. And the high school schedule, the question is, when does the madness stop? We're so concerned about politics. We're so concerned about the emotions and the reaction of a coach that we don't stop to think about ourselves. This isn't about you and I. This isn't about the high school coach. This isn't about the travel ball coach. This is about your future. This is about doing what's right for you to get where you need to be. Now, I got news for you. Our facility, the way that we set it up, we structured it. We work for, mainly pro guys. We work in the private space. It allows us a lot more freedoms in terms of financials to buy technologies, right? Those technologies help us assess. So when we start talking about evaluating ourselves, getting into the off-season program, you and I have talked over and over and over again about how important it is to assess, right? Think about it. How many pieces of technology do you think we have in the assessment process for the strength and conditioning side of things? I mean, 4, 5, yeah. Right? And all of those products, the cheapest of those products probably being $400 is my guess, right? So it's not to brag about our facility or the price. I'd rather we didn't pay that money on those things, right? But it's to say that we have this technology that's helping our guys evaluate themselves. It's helping us look objectively at what we do. Now, I can't expect a high school to have that, okay? So it's nothing against the high school. It's just that, like, at the end of the day, I put all this time and effort. I wanted to experience those things. Like, the salary that we work off of is based off of our private space, right? Not off a high school salary. So, but what's important for a high school coach? Well, he has to have a job. He has to have that salary. So guess what? He has to have guys play in the fall, right? And he has to have guys play in the spring. That's his job. So if all of his guys disappear in the fall and don't play, guess what? He ain't getting that stipend, right? So he's going to be upset. And at the end of the day, this isn't against high school coaches. I love high school coaches. They work their butts off, especially most of them. Some of them are doing it for volunteer. They don't even make money doing it, right? So, but when they start to say, hey, you can't play in the spring, you're not going to make varsity, I'm going to stick you on JV, and they use it as a leverage point to say you can't play fall, well, that goes against a lot of things. But most importantly, it goes against the schedule that's best for the athlete. And this schedule has to be observed. This schedule has to be what's right. The athlete has to take ownership of what is right for them. So in this case, we look at the schedule again. When are you making your decision as a high school athlete? You have to make it in the summer or the fall. If you want to take the summer off and listen, it's nothing against a high school coach. Again, if you want to take and just play high school baseball, you want to play fall baseball and spring baseball, don't play with the summer. Simple as that. Take 4 or 5 months off during that summer period after spring ends, and you're just not going to play travel ball. Reality is most people think that they're going to get exposed, that they're going to get seen by playing summer ball. So, do you get seen playing high school ball? Probably not. Do you get seen over the summer? Probably more so. So, again, priorities. We have to value ourselves. We have to, as a family, sit down and have a conversation and say, hey, listen, it's about us, right? How many kids each and every year, think about this, how many kids walk through our door, miss their opportunities to go to the next level just because they never took the time to actually develop, right? They're in our place for 1 or 2 months. They utilize all of our stuff. They love our process, but then they go and we hear this complaint, oh, my coach isn't going to let me do that. We hear that all the time, right? Think about it. Like, how many guys miss their opportunity to move forward in their career because of that? Crazy. Absolutely crazy. From a strength and conditioning standpoint, how many months would you ideally have a guy in the facility in preparation for the season?
At least like 4 or 5, where again, going into the throwing schedule, having those, you're taking a month off, and we know the first 2 months of throwing is going to be light. That gives us 3 months roughly where we can gain weight, lift heavy, get after it in the weight room, and then once you start throwing more high intensity and having that stuff on the throwing end, reducing that. So another 4 to 5 months is really where to develop those skills, and being able to get strong is important. And younger athletes, freshmen, sophomores in high school, it's probably a little bit longer because they're going to have to be movement. Like if we go back to our movement phase, or what we go through from a lifting standpoint, is they're going to have to learn how to lift so they can actually lift heavy to actually become strong. And that's a couple 4 to 6 months added on to that when they first start up. And then once they get to the level of Trap Bar Deadlifts, they can actually load the bar and get after it and actually become really, really strong.
So I know these answers, but I want to flip them to you. I'm going to tee you up. You ready?
Okay.
I'm going to flip them to you. Just hit them out of the park. Ready? So how long does it take for us to start to see actual change in an athlete?
3 to 4 months.
Okay, 3 to 4 months, right? So in terms of weight, what's a good expectation? Even guys that press their absolute hardest, right? Yeah. Guys that press their absolute hardest, what's the expectation of weight gain for them?
Weight gain is going to be 1 to 2 pounds a week.
Okay.
So if we're thinking 20 pounds, if you're 160 and you're trying to gain some weight, 180, that's going to take minimum 10 weeks. If that means if you're dialed in on your nutrition, dialed in on their lifting, sleep, everything is dialed in, it's going to be 10 weeks minimum. And if we're trying to get a little bit bigger than that, then it's just going to take a longer time.
I know you've also talked about correctives when we start talking about mobility. Gaining mobility takes like minimum of 8 weeks, right? Yeah. So we start to put this together, we're starting to realize this is a 2-month plus process.
Yeah.
Okay.
Minimum.
Now let's go to our next category here, right? So we talked about high school and the pitfalls of high school. We don't find the time in a season. Now, most guys think, oh, I'm going to go to college, and my college is going to develop me, right? I'm going to #1 big D1 school in my state. They are focused on development. That's what I heard in my recruiting process. Man, I'm going to be developed. I can't wait. This fall, those coaches told me we're going to use all this technology, and I'm going to get in a weight room, and they have an outstanding weightlifting program. They're sponsored by a certain protein company, and you go, oh, well, that's amazing. You're going to get huge. I can't wait. So then we go to college, right? So here's the deal about college. Let's talk about college, okay? I'm going to use myself as the example here. Okay, my junior year, springtime, February to May, I threw 110 innings. Okay, threw 110 innings. I was a Saturday guy. Jimmy Herget threw on Fridays. Always in front of me. Jimmy, shout out Jimmy. I threw 110 innings. I went to the Cape that summer. Okay, I pitched in the Cape that summer. I threw 67 more innings that summer. So it's up to 177 innings at that point. Came back in the fall. Didn't think I was going to pitch much. Thought I was going to take a fall off. Nope, you're going to pitch. I threw 15 innings that fall. Okay? So that was September, November. Now that's supposed to be my developmental period, right? But I ended up throwing innings. I didn't need innings. I needed to get strong. Now, the guys at USF did an amazing job with me. That was just what we did it was new coaching staff that year. So it is what it is. But no, it's not a bash on any program, right? It's just saying that this is what happens in college. Like I went through the fall. I lifted, I threw, tried to stay on track. Reality is I probably should have shut down and built up nice and slow and got through the fall. I then so here's the off season in college baseball. You ready for this? Off season, college baseball, 1 month. December 10th to 15th, somewhere in that range, or January 5th to 10th, somewhere in that range. That's it. You are off for 1 month. So you're going to go home. You're going to see your family. That's also during like Christmas, right? So there's, 4 days out probably. Okay. And Thanksgiving in many cases. Yeah, exactly. So we're through the holidays there, and we're expecting that 1 month off, we're going to get after it. I hear guys all the time, I can't wait for the off season. Can't wait for the off season. Can't wait for wintertime. I'm going to get after it. Okay. Well, we just went over all these numbers, right? None of which did we say, hey, in 30 days, you can expect a massive change. Typically that 1 month is a cleanup period. It's a, hey, let's look at what we're doing. Let's talk about some things, some strategies. Let's take this into spring. Let's do this appropriately. Let's take these drills. Let's take this corrective work. Let's make sure that we maintain these things in spring. You want to see change, come back and see us in the summer. Yeah. That's usually what that is, right? So again, breaking these misconceptions. A lot of athletes, and I won't go down this rabbit hole either, but a lot of athletes think they're going to go to Division I school, big D1 school. They're going to develop me. They got all these cool toys. They bought all this stuff. Then you get there and realize I don't use any of it. Oh crap, now what? Well, guess what? You got to plan a development period. Well, my coach told me I need to go to Northwoods League this summer. I need to go to the Cape. I need to go to whatever. Okay, well, maybe you should prioritize development. Maybe you should take those 3 months that you have in the summertime, and maybe you should focus on building your craft. Well, my coach wants me to get innings, get experience. Okay, great. Well, your coach also says you're not going to pitch on that staff until you throw 90. Your coach also looks around and he has 12 guys that are all throwing 95. Great, guess what? Probably time for us to take a step back and figure out how to get on that wagon, right? I got to build a new pitch. I got to throw harder. I got to build myself physically. Whatever those goals are, we got to evaluate those and figure out how we're going to make you more competitive to get innings that next year. It's not going to happen by you aimlessly throwing innings, not lifting because you're got to go to some crappy gym, or you're on a bus traveling like state to state and there's no quality facilities for you to actually get stuff done at. This is not real, true development for the athletes. That is summer ball. Okay. I love the Cape. I would not trade that summer for anything. Okay. But I was also a junior in college and I was pretty physically built with my stuff peaking pretty solid where I needed it to. Okay. It's a case by case situation. Not saying summer ball is bad. We just have to evaluate again. When am I building myself? When am I developing? If the pros take 4 to 5 months off, why don't I? Okay. Why don't I? Again, having these conversations. They're tough conversations. And lastly, let's go to that pro calendar one more time. Boom. Beauty. Freaking love it. Well, we shouldn't have to wait till we're 25 in order to actually execute it, right? Like we should be able to actually do this up front. So that is our under the hood this week. That's our philosophy. Those are our recommendations. So whether you're a parent of a youth or you're a youth athlete out there, you're listening in, or you're a pro athlete, you guys need to think through your periods of time where you are training. How am I going to maximize this period off? Get myself where I need to be physically. How do I take a deeper look into this thing? Again, going back to the macro, micro cycles. If you guys want to go back and review that KP community, again, value there in terms of understanding how we break this down. Maybe a space for us to break down a future episode. So we'll see. Boom. We're back. All right. Let's wrap it up tonight with a little. Oh, not the wrap. Darn it. So close. There we go. AMA. All right. I got a question for you, Garrett. Okay. You gonna bring some energy on this one?
Sure.
Okay. All right. From Anonymous, because he doesn't want to stir the pot here. Doesn't want to call out of school, but asking a good question. He is one of our remote athletes, doing a great job. How do I maintain my fast twitch strength while running long distance at practice? My coach likes us to run long distances. That's the question and also a statement, I think, at the end. Garrett, what do you got on that? How do we mitigate that? I've heard that from a number of guys this year. Talk a little bit about that and what in the world is fast twitch strength?
Yeah, so let's redefine that. So fast twitch strength is basically, he's talking about a power output. So power is just force and time. So more force you can produce in a shorter amount of time, the higher that power output. Running long distances probably isn't the best for it, but as long as you're doing stuff in the weight room correctly, as long as you're on a certain plyometric progression or weight progression in the weight room, and then also at practice, you're probably running the bases, you're sprinting, you're doing stuff at practice that are going to be high power output things, you shouldn't see huge decreases the biggest problem with running long distance is just, especially, I know this guy, he's a little smaller, so he's probably trying to gain weight. So it's just going to be more calories you burn. So it just means you're going to have to eat more or drink more Gatorade. Where talking about development this whole episode, if that's one of your main things, long distance running, adding calories where you're trying to eat more calories isn't probably a good thing.
Gotcha. Love it. And I think that's, people talk about like fast twitch muscles all the time.
Yeah.
And I think they don't really necessarily understand what they're talking about with that. But yeah, we're talking about force production in our case. And I think it's good to understand, look, we're not trying to build, world-class long-distance runners, endurance athletes. We're trying to create guys that can produce a whole crap ton of force in a short period of time.
Yep.
And so, again, mitigating that, tough, but as long as we're not running like 10 miles, which I don't think anybody does. I hope not. As long as we're not running 10 miles, I think we can mitigate that by just, like you said, implementing some plyo progression, which sounds awesome. So, again, if you are a remote athlete, if you are an in-house athlete, that is one of your problems, contact us, support at KineticProBaseball.com. Of course, Garrett and I'd be happy to chat with you guys and get things right in your progression. Talk about that. So, question from Tyler Susi. I've seen some of your comments regarding RPE-based workload management. This came from Twitter, by the way. Aside from athletes, especially amateur, being generally terrible at monitoring RPE, are there any other exceptions you have with RPE-based throwing programs? Yeah. So great question. And first off, I want to make it clear that I'm not out against RPE programs. Like I don't have a thing that I'm like super upset. I think a lot of people draw up great throwing programs. It shocks me how well coaches have understood the body without actually looking at research to understand the body. It's amazing to me. We understand things like recovery cycles. Like you and I have done a lot of deep dive and digging on, and we're going to do a lot more this winter, but deep dives and digging on like, what does a recovery cycle look like for an athlete, outing to outing? How do we see, influence and change in recovery cycles? In this case, we've seen a lot of guys build great throwing programs based around RPE and throwing cycles, and give adequate time for an athlete to progress and regress, throughout their throwing process. So not completely out against RPE. RPE for me, when we look at a guy throwing, we say throw 50%, right? If I told you to throw 50%, me throw 50%. Two totally different worlds. Your perception of 50% and my broke down arm perception of 50% are not the same, right? When we think about this, we start to understand that there is a few key components that help us devise the calculation of how much stress is being applied to the arm in a throw, right? We have the speed at which the arm is moving, the slot at which the arm is moving, the size of the athlete. Those are all things that are helping us apply insight to how much load we create daily in our throwing process. So in terms of, I had one time on Twitter, you'll get a kick out of this. I had one time on Twitter, a guy tell me that they were not going to change the throwing model that they had because it was progressive overload, throwing big words at me. Like I didn't understand what they were talking about. Big words like progressive and overload. Show me a throwing program that's not progressive overload. Like the idea is that like we're progressively overloading and building, right? So like that, like show me a program that starts off and goes backward from the beginning. Like there isn't one. I think if anybody's ever built a regressive, like I don't know if everybody's built a regressive model, it's probably me. But like every throwing program is like progressive overload, right? Regardless of whether you do it with workload management or you do it with, just an RPE based program, like everybody's doing progressive overload. So anyways, moving on, I digress. The idea though is that if we're trying to build like, a return to throw program is a good example of this, right? We have a guy who goes out to 120 feet or 90 feet or 60 feet. Some guys are throwing on a line, some guys are throwing in an arc. Everybody has a different perception of what that is. Reality is we need to understand the ramifications of the load on a daily basis. So if I'm throwing and I throw, one guy throws 100 balls at 60 feet, another guy throws 100 balls at 60 feet, and one guy throws every throw on an arc, and guy throws every ball straight, both of them are the same velocities. Which was more stress? I don't know, right? Like, I have no idea. There's so many different variables with arm slot, arm speed, body type. Like there's so many different variables, but we're able to quantify with technology load today. So okay, great. Like it's not everything. It's not sleep. It's not all these other metrics that we can add in. But throwing load, period. Yeah, let's use the technology that we have and let's get better. Like let's take that out of the equation, right? We can start to use a deeper model to help kids, especially with return to throw. I think that's just such a low-hanging fruit for the industry. We've got orthopedics writing 21-day return to throw programs off of major issues with the arm, right? And guys are throwing 150 balls in 80 pitches on day 14. Like I couldn't do that to our healthiest athletes. Like that's crazy. They're out of their mind. So, do I see anything, aside from just the idea that athletes have no awareness of 50% or 70% or whatever that is? Yes, I think that we need to do a better job of quantifying load, like the variance. And when you talk about RPE-based models of variance of actual load that you're calculating or expecting daily from an athlete is so huge and something that we've looked at. I'm not going to share the data there because I don't know that it's it's kind of in our in-house stuff, but the variance, in terms of what I projected and what actually happened, a lot of guys were way under, a lot of guys were way over. A lot of guys have no idea how to value or input what their perceived effort was, or they're adding extra throws to 70%. We just can't calculate it. So again, just being more objective. We have technology to do it today. That technology is going to continue to be the front runner and how we approach this. That idea of that technology, that calculation of that load. That's how we're going to improve this, and we just have to start there. So, do I have any issues with RPE-based programs? No, I think that they're fine for coaches. I don't recommend them, but I'm not bashing anybody that uses them. Do I think we can do a lot better job? Heck yeah, and I would be happy to talk to any coach that wants to continue to figure out how do we do things like workload management better with throwers. It has completely changed the way that we work our facility. I mean, the last 3 years, the way that we've approached our athletes, the off-season training, I mean, it has completely revolutionized the way that we do what we do, and been a staple in our process. So, Tyler, appreciate the message on Twitter, response and engagement. Hopefully that answers a little bit about your RPE-based workload management. Again, nothing wrong with it. Just I think there's a lot more to it that we need to be aware of, and that variance overall in terms of the issues seen. So, with that being said, moving on to finish up tonight with the wrap. I'm starving. That burrito looked really good. All right, closing off tonight. We've got a bunch of guys signing up for assessments. Get ready for the off season. I think we're going to end up capping again in December. Recommend any of you guys that are looking to get started with us in training, KineticProBaseball.com. Hit the training tab. Go to the baseball tab within training. Hit book my assessment. You guys can book out all the way into December. That first date that you guys are back. Make sure you guys get on the calendar and check out our scheduler for that. Really excited about having our guys back. It's all you guys that are out there that are maybe going through the college season, getting back with us. We're stoked to have you guys back with all the new technologies and tools. We got so much releasing in the next couple of weeks, months. I'm super excited. Also, Mike's own sighting coming soon. Excited about that. Been playing that up again. Shout out Pro Play for their sponsor this week. Shout out CTD for their sponsor this week as well. And yeah, man, I mean, I'm excited about what's ahead for the next month. Hopefully these communities will be getting a few guests. We have a whole speaker list lined up, and then doing a live community from Chicago, ABCA, coming around the corner. Garrett's going to be there. Excited. With that being said, guys, tonight to finish it up, make sure you guys are checking out, those of you that are members, make sure you're checking out coop.kineticprobaseball.com. Getting in there, checking out the content that we're releasing weekly to you guys. For you, those of you that are not part of Kinetic Pro, make sure you check out our website. Make sure you guys subscribe. It's such a help to us getting this message out, trying to just help people. This is free content. We do this for fun. Helping you guys hopefully engage in the content, learn more about it. If you guys can just subscribe and share, huge help in getting our process out there and getting our message out there for the rest of the baseball community. So with that being said, Garrett, dude, we got to do a better job with the energy next week. All right. All right, guys. Appreciate it. See you guys next week on episode 8. Later.